All right, everyone, this is the video 2, and let's talk about startup costs. In the last video, we talked about the emotional side of what it takes to open a pole studio. This time, we will talk about something that will determine whether you will survive or you won't. Let's talk about money. When we opened our studio, our rent was already about $4,500 a month. So before we even turned on the lights, we were already committed. We were fortunate. We had a friend who invested about $80,000 to help us get started. And even with that cushion, it was still very stressful. So today I'm going to break down what it actually costs to open a pole studio, what people underestimate, and how much we actually made. Because let me tell you something, loving pole is free, open a pole studio is not. And Pinterest boards do not pay rent. Let's talk about the big picture. I had to use this. This was pretty cool. But the big picture. There is no such thing as a $10,000 pole studio startup. Bare minimum build out, $40,000 to $60,000. Professional mid-size pole studio, $60,000 to $100,000. Boutique aesthetic dream build, we're talking about $100,000 and more. If someone told you they opened their pole studio for about $15,000, they're liars. Okay, I'm just kidding. One of those three things happened. They had a free space, meaning they opened in their garage or somewhere in the living room downstairs, which is not something I would recommend you to do because of the HOA and a lot of other problems you'll have later. They ignored operating reserves, or they just simply forgot to count half the expenses, and they just lied. But we will count everything. All right, let's talk about lease and rent reality. Things you need to think about: first month rent, sometimes last month rent, and security deposit. Security deposit might be between 1 to 3 months worth of rent. Sometimes, if you get really lucky, that might be no security deposit. You could easily need between $9,000 to $15,000 just to get the keys. If you own a house, you know what HOA means. HOA of the business is called triple net. There's 3 N's. That might be included in your rent. When you look for pricing, for example, it's $15 per square foot, you need to ask the landlord, does that include triple net or not? How much is it for triple net? So your rent might not be the actual number. Build out. This is where your Pinterest board meets the reality. You will likely need paint, flooring, electrical work, structure and adjustment, mirrors, and much more. Now let's talk mirrors. And yes, you will need them. Students do not believe the invisible corrections. So between build out and mirrors alone, you can easily spend over 30 grand before poles. And since we're talking about poles, let's talk about poles and installation. So depending on height and the quality of the poles you're gonna get, the price range will be between $300 to $1,000 per pole. To be honest, it might be even higher than that. It kind of all depends. I would recommend go for the quality for sure. Number one thing in your building are poles. You will have about 6 to 12 poles in your studio. Installation costs could be $1,000, between $5,000. Again, it all depends on the amount of poles. Oh, and it also depends on a ceiling structure too. Now here is where it gets interesting. No. I just wanted you to see where that disappeared. So if you're lucky, you might have a friend, a husband who is extremely handy and understands the structural safety and reinforcement. In our case, this was my partner's husband, Alex. But if not, so if it's not your case, please do not let Susan, who fixes everything cheap from Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, is that even a thing still? Anyway, handle this unless she really knows what she's doing. This is not IKEA furniture. This is human safety attached to your ceiling and floor. So pay for proper installation. Your future self will really thank you. Oh, and maybe not a bad idea to ask them how to do a regular maintenance on them, because there is such thing. Next thing, crash mats. This is another non-negotiable. You will need crash mats. They will cost you between $150 and $500 per crash mat. Again, it depends what kind, how big, what shape, and so on. A good rule of thumb is get at least as many crash mats as many poles you have. Because let's be real, we'll just spot them is not a safety policy. Let's talk about creating your LLC. In Texas, where I had my pole studio, we only paid a fee to start an LLC, but we did not pay annually anything at all. Texas is very business friendly. That's what my partner used to say, and she was very right. I mean, things might be different by the time you're watching this video, but back then, that was the case, and it was 2019 to 2025 or something like that. You didn't have to pay any annual fees. Now in Maryland, where I'm right now, I have my boba shop here, Water Boba. You need to pay yearly fees on top of the fee that you pay to create an LLC. So here it's about $300 yearly. So it will vary per state. So check with your state. Scheduling software. Let's talk about that. That was pretty cool, right? We started with MindBody, then we switched to Wellness Living. Both are not cheap, but both are powerful. So expect 150 to about 300 plus per month, depending on the features you choose, including the app. Are you going to have an app? It's just a great idea, but we'll talk about that later. They are definitely cheaper platforms, but do not choose based on price. It's going to be a pain in the butt to switch from one to the other later on. And you need buyer-friendly interface. Click on that, you will buy that. Easy. You don't need to do 2, 3, 20 clicks in order for you to get something that you want to buy. So choose based on what you need long-term. Security cameras. Security cameras are absolutely non-negotiable. Listen to me and listen to me closely. You must have them, and you need the ones that record. If someone slips, falls, or claims something happened, you need facts and video recordings on your hands. You need to see what happened. Anyway, for your students, for your instructors, for you. So must have. Now let's talk about branding and logo. We use 99 Designs and we absolutely loved it. It's very professional. You get copyright ownership. You can also use Fiverr. It's much cheaper. You still get a great quality if you get the right designer at the right price. Later, you can also trademark your logo, but just keep in mind that trademarking gets pretty expensive. I believe it can be from $5,000 and up. But you don't have to do that. Build stability first and then protect it later if money is an issue in the beginning, which usually it is. Instructor payroll. Instructor pay varies. In my experience, starting about $15 for newer instructors, and then it can go to $20, $25. The most expensive one I've had was $35, and that's for advanced instructors. And then some classes were percentage split. So let's run some numbers. If you run 20 classes per week and it's on average $30 per class, that's roughly $2,400 to $3,000 payroll in a month before you even pay yourself. And here's the rule. Everyone always gets paid before you do. Welcome to the ownership. It sucks, but you will love it. So whether or not my husband will kill me for sitting on his car, you'll find it out. If I don't post my next video, you know who did that. Anyway, so let's use this time wisely and talk about the operating reserves. I recommend to have at least 6 months of rent saved, at least. So with our $4,500 rent, that's about $27,000 that needed to be saved to open a studio. That's before payroll and utilities. And keep in mind that studios do not open at a full capacity. They build, and building does take time and money. Now let's talk about the interesting part everybody wants to know. How much we actually made. Our first big check, about $700 each. And we were ecstatic. We thought we were like business moguls. Moguls? But then after that, it kind of went up slowly. And then before COVID, we made about $5,000 to $6,000 each. Those were our strongest months. Worst months after the COVID, $1,500 each. Typical months, $2,500 to $3,500 each. And very rarely we would hit $4,000 each consistently after COVID. And honestly, after COVID, we never really bounced back the same way. Now let's talk about cash flow versus profit. If your studio brings in, let's say, $20,000 a month, that does not mean that you make $20,000 a month. That makes sense, right? After rent, utilities, payroll, software, insurance, supplies, processing fees, your take home can look very different. Gross revenue feels exciting. That's exactly why it's gross. Nobody likes it because it goes away. The net revenue is realistic. Net profit is what pays your mortgage. So my biggest advice would be from the very beginning when you just open the studio, try to teach as many classes as you can by yourself so your payroll looks very, very small. So maybe $500 a month or something, which you can basically afford. So is open the studio possible? Yes. It is powerful, it's rewarding, but it is very, very unpredictable. The more honest you are with your expectations right now and with your numbers, the less painful it's going to be in the future. In the next video, we will talk about leases because a bad lease can sink your studio even faster than your first class starts. And I will give you some tips and tricks on how to sign a successful lease.